There's a warehouse that runs 3 shifts a day and has never once turned on the lights for the night crew. It doesn't need to. The night crew can't see anyway, or rather, it doesn't see the way you do. It navigates in total darkness by laser, and it never asks for a break, never calls in sick, never files a complaint. For almost all of human history, we told ourselves a comforting story about machines. They would take the jobs we didn't want, the dangerous ones, the dirty ones, the mind numbing ones. And in return, humans would move up to creativity, to strategy, to judgment, to the things only a mind can do. That story is now coming apart, and it's coming apart in the exact opposite order we expected. Part 1, the inversion. Here's the thing almost nobody predicted. We assumed the truck driver, the warehouse picker, and the fry cook were the first in line for automation, and that the writer, the lawyer, and the illustrator were safe up in the tower of human creativity. The reality turned out to be backwards. The machines came for the mind first. Language models learned to write, to summarize, to code, to draft contracts, and to generate images. Not perfectly, but well enough to reshape entire professions in a matter of a few years. The junior copywriter, the paralegal, the stock illustrator, the entry level programmer, these were the people who felt the ground move first, the safe, creative jobs. Meanwhile, the robots were still struggling to fold a towel. There's a name for why this happened. It's called Moravec's paradox, named after robotics Hans Moravec, who noticed something strange back in the 1980s. The hard thing turned out to be easy, and the easy things turned out to be nearly impossible. Abstract reasoning, chess, math, logic, writing, the stuff we treat as the peak of human intelligence, is comparatively simple to automate. But the things a 1 year old does without thinking, seeing, grasping, walking across a cluttered room, catching a ball, requiring staggering amounts of computation to even approximate. 2 billion years of evolution optimized our bodies to move through the physical world. Only a few thousand went into optimizing our minds for abstract thought. So the abstract thought was the thin layer, the easy target, which is why the poet felt the future before the plumber did. Part 2, the slow part. But the physical world was never safe. It was just slow. Dexterity was the last mile, the single hardest problem in the whole endeavor. Getting a machine to thread a needle, improvise in a messy kitchen, handle a fragile object it's never seen before, or climb an unfamiliar staircase in the dark. For decades, this seemed impossibly far off. The same kind of learning that taught software to write, taught hardware to move. Robots began learning from demonstration and from simulation, the way a person learns a physical skill by watching and repeating, building general models of how the world behaves, rather than being programmed, action by action. Consider the one physical job everyone thought was easy driving. It took the better part of 2 decades and millions upon millions of miles of real world experience before a car could reliably drive a city street without a human touching the wheel. Driving looked trivial. It was one of the hardest things we ever taught a machine to do. And humanoid robots, the ones now being built to walk into a factory or eventually a home, and simply do the work a person does are climbing the same curve, slower than software, but climbing. Put the two curves together, a mind that can reason and a body that can act, and you arrive at a place humanity has genuinely never been. A place where, for the first time, there is very little a person can do for money that a machine cannot eventually do faster, cheaper, and without complaint. So here's the question that should be keeping economists up at night. If the machines take the thinking and the machines take the moving, what exactly is the last human job? Part 3, the roles. To understand what might happen next, it helps to look at an experiment that had nothing to do with technology at all. In 1968, a scientist named John Calhoun built a paradise, not for humans, for mice. Unlimited food, perfect temperature, no predators, no disease, no scarcity of any kind. Everything a creature could need provided forever. The population exploded. And then, at the height of its abundance, it collapsed. Within a few years, every mouse was dead. Not from hunger, not from violence in the way you'd expect, but from something stranger. Calhoun's own conclusion was not that life was too easy, it was that the society ran out of roles. In a normal environment, there's always a role to fill, territory to defend, a mate to win, young to raise, a place to earn. But in a world where every need is met and every position is already occupied, the young animals grew up with nowhere to slot in, no purpose to step into, nothing that needed doing. And so they simply withdrew. Calhoun called the most extreme of them the beautiful ones. They ate, they groomed themselves, they were physically flawless, and they did nothing else. They didn't fight, they didn't mate, they didn't engage. They were alive, and they were finished. Now, mice are not people. Humans invent new roles that mice never could: art, science, culture, meaning we build for ourselves out of nothing. That's the crucial difference, and we should hold on to it. But Calhoun was pointing at something real, and it's the exact same thing an automated world puts to the test. For most of history, your job was more than a paycheck, it was your role. It was the answer to the question, what do you do? Which is really the question, what are you for? It gave structure to the day, status among peers, a reason to get up. Automation doesn't just threaten income, that part we can solve. You can redistribute money, and societies are already experimenting with exactly that. Automation threatens role, and that is a much harder thing to hand out. Part 4: The Two Futures. So, the same set of technologies opens onto two very different futures. And the interesting part is that the technology doesn't decide which one we get, we do. The first future is liberation. For most of human history, most work was suffering, backbreaking, dangerous, tedious labor that people did because they had no choice. If machines can carry that burden, then for the first time ever, human beings might get to spend their lives on the things they choose freely: creating, caring, learning, exploring, raising children, building a community, pushing into space and into science for the sheer wonder of it. This is the world where work stops meaning survival and starts meaning contribution, where a person's worth was never really their productivity to begin with, where abundance finally does what abundance was always supposed to do: set us free. Calhoun, for what it's worth, spent the end of his career arguing this was possible, that a species could escape the trap by expanding not into the physical space, but into the conceptual space. New ideas, new roles, new reasons to exist that no one had invented yet. The second future is the beautiful ones. Every need met, every discomfort smoothed away, endless entertainment, endless comfort, endless ease, and underneath it, a quiet, spreading purposelessness that no amount of comfort can fill. This future doesn't end in a dramatic collapse. That's what makes it frightening. It ends in a soft one, a generation that has everything and is for nothing, alive and finished. It won't announce itself. It'll feel like relief. It'll feel like finally being taken care of. That's the trap. So, what is the last human job? Maybe it isn't a job at all. Maybe the last real work left to us is the work no machine can do on our behalf, deciding what we're for, building the roles that abundance won't hand out for free, choosing deliberately and against the pull of pure comfort to remain the kind of creature that still reaches for something. The machines can take the labor, they cannot take that decision. They can only wait to see what we do with it. The mice never got to choose. We still do, for now. If this made you think, here's the question I want in the comments. When the machines can do almost everything, are we walking into the first future or the second? And what do you think it takes to land in the right one? Drop your answers below. And if you want to keep looking honestly at where all of this is actually heading, no hype, no doom, just where the technology really points, subscribe. There's a lot more of the future to walk through. See you in the foreseeable future.